as one of, I would say, the unmarried people in the office, I tend to converse with you guys a lot about my dating woes and my just different funny situations that have happened, or like who I'm talking to on an app or anything like that. And one of the stories I've told in the office, and I think you've heard it before, but you know, our greater audience has not, kind of prompted me to think about this topic of like being alone. And a while back ago, I matched with a guy on a dating app, and we were talking, and I was like, oh, this is fun. We should, you know, meet up. And he, you know, very much was like, yeah, how about tonight? And I thought, oh, like he's planning a date, like, great. Usually you pen pal with someone for weeks before you can convince them to go out to coffee with you. And so he's like, let's meet tonight at 8 at this restaurant in Ferndale. And I said, great. So I go, and I'm, you know, sitting there, and time is ticking. And so then, you know, the wait staff was kind of like, are you waiting for someone? What's happening? I said, I'm supposed to be meeting this guy from this dating app. I've never met him before, but we're meeting here. And they said, okay, we're going to keep an eye out for him. What time were you supposed to meet him? And I said, we were supposed to meet at 8. And they're like, well, it's 8:20. Where is he? And, you know, so I messaged him, you know, are you coming? What's happening? And then about 8:35 hit, and I started texting like our group chat and some of our friends that I'm pretty sure I was getting stood up, and I was just sitting at this bar in this restaurant literally all by myself. And it was one of those moments where I felt very alone. And I felt like everybody was looking at me. Have you ever had those situations?
Absolutely. Totally.
Yes.
100%. Absolutely. Been there before.
Where everyone's just looking at you, and you're sitting there, you're like, there's like a sign on me. It says I'm alone.
Yeah.
All this stuff. And then instantly, as soon as I sent that text out, as soon as, you know, I looked to the wait staff, and I'm saying like, I don't think he's showing up. I mean, first of all, shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to Pops for Italian in Ferndale.
Oh, that's one of my favorite restaurants.
It's such a good restaurant. You should go there. But that wait staff was literally ready to go to war for me. They're like, if this guy walks in, like, thank you. But also in that moment, I got so many texts from my friends. Are you okay? Do you want us to come up there? We'll come up there and sit with you, all this stuff. And I said, no. I'm going to leave. But it was just one of those feelings where I think I had to sit in the fact that I was alone. And I think for some of us, we struggle with that, especially if you're single. We struggle with this idea of, am I going to be alone? Why don't I have a partner? What is it about me? And then it leads into all these different forms of self-doubt. And unfortunately, I think kind of growing up in certain eras of the church, we felt that a little bit too. I mean, I kind of remember going through high school, and I've mentioned this on our dating episode before, where it was always like, when you get married, when you meet somebody. And then, you know, you come home from college and you're visiting, and people are like, have you met a boy? You're like, well, I met lots of boys, but none of them that I want to date, you know? And then, oh, well, you'll find somebody soon. It was always kind of one of those things. And it kind of made you feel, while all these people were very good intentioned, I don't think any of them were coming from a bad place. It just makes you feel more and more alone. And you know, as I process through that, I kind of can't help but think I'm not the only one who struggles with it. I just wanted to take a moment to just encourage our single people out there. But now I'm saying this, if you are married, please do not tune out, because there's things that you guys can do as married people to help single people not to feel so alone. And I think the first thing that I would encourage married people do, and this is going to sound weird, but I think as I talk it out, it won't be as weird, is adopt a single person. Like literally, I have so many married friends, and I would say my married friends, I'm probably one of the fewer single friends that they have left. But hanging out with my married friends is not weird. It's not uncomfortable. None of them act like, oh, we can't hang out because like there's 3 of us and we're a couple and you're not a couple. Like this idea of that everything has to be like paired off is something that we kind of just, I think, overall in society need to get over. For sure. I think one of the greatest things is like my married friends love to just hang out with me, and they don't treat it any differently. It's not anything weird. And so I think for married people, be more apt to hang out with your single friends, and don't make it all about like, oh, we should double date or we should do things like that. Just hang out. It's fine. Do what you're normally doing or what you would do in a group setting. with and invite your single friends along. I think it's really important when we think about this idea of being alone that there's like 3 really big things that I think we always need to remember regardless of our situation in life. And the first is that God will never leave us. And I think that's one of those phrases we hear in the church sometimes a lot, and it can feel repetitive, but it's something that's so true and so beautiful in those moments. When we're feeling alone, when we're feeling like, oh man, I wish I was in a relationship, or I wish I had someone to share this with, you do. You do. You can talk to God about anything, but also God is with you in those moments. You are never truly alone. And I think that's a beautiful picture in those moments where we do feel really alone, to think that like there is a God who loves us so much, who sees us, and he sees us all the time. And he sees us in those good moments, but he also sees us in those moments where we do feel alone. And he can come alongside of us in those moments. And it's just something so special. And I want to make sure that you all who are listening know that. I think churches, pastors, married people continue to encourage single people and know that like they're not alone. And even if you're married and you feel alone in your marriage, or even if you feel alone in your family, or you walking into a church for the first time and you don't know anyone and you feel alone, like this doesn't just have to relate to dating and relationships. God is never going to leave you. He is always with you. And that's a beautiful truth that we can hold on to. The second thing is that God never intended for you to do life alone. He built a community of people around you to support you. Now, yes, there is the idea of you have a partner in marriage, but you also have people in your life who want to care for you and want to love you and want to support you. I'm one of those people who I have a really hard time asking for help. And I think sometimes when I'm in those like modes where I want to fix everything in my house. Like I recently just repainted my kitchen and I did it all by myself. And there was a few times where I thought, man, it would be really nice to have like a husband who could come over here and deal with some of this stuff. And the truth is that God gave us community, whether it's through our church, whether it's through work, whether it's through extracurricular activities we do at the gym, if it's a book club you go to. God's given you a community of people around you to help you not to feel alone. We're not meant to do this life alone. And so I encourage you to get into community. If you don't have a community, look, Woodside's got 14 campuses. We're in Southeast Michigan. We would love it if you're local here and you don't have a community, please come to one of our campuses. We have people there who would love to meet you, who would love to journey in life alongside of you. Get plugged into community, because when you're in community, that idea of feeling alone becomes less and less. And you know what? Sure, we have introverted moments where we maybe want to be alone. But if you're sitting at home on a Friday night and you're wishing you would do something, call up your community. Say, hey, what are we doing? Let's go do something. Hey, can you come help me with this? It really, really helps in those situations. And the last thing I just want you to know is that you're not defined by your relationship status. You know, whether it's in the world around you or in church, you may feel this stigma that you have to be married or you have to be in a relationship by a certain age or you have to have kids by a certain time. I just want you to know that your relationship status does not define you. What defines you is that you are created by God and that you are his son, you are his daughter. And I think so much time we put so much pressure on a relationship, like that's going to fix all of our problems. And the truth of the matter is it doesn't. It doesn't fix whatever thing you're trying to fill that relationship with. The only thing that can fix that is God. That void that you feel in your life that you think a relationship will fix or give you some type of status or get the, church grandmas off your back about finding a husband is only something that can be filled by God. And that goes back to that first point of God's never going to leave us.
So you were mentioning how like our relationship status doesn't define our identity. Mm-hmm. And I 100% agree with you. But is there a deeper, I don't want to say deeper issue, but like we talk about this all the time, how we are lacking a discipleship culture in most churches across our country. And just going up to people asking them, how are you doing in your walk with Christ? As opposed to, what are you up to? What are you working on? When are you going to get married? Talk about the importance of checking on your brother or sister in Christ on how their walk with God is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I think when I said like you're not defined by your relationship status, it's important to know that the literal only relationship that matters in your entire life, not the relationship with your spouse, not the relationship with your parents, not the relationship with your friends, is your relationship with God. That is ultimately the greatest relationship you will ever have, and truly the only relationship in your life that matters. Because if that relationship is like in a healthy spot and you are walking with God in your life, every other relationship is going to benefit from that.
Exactly.
And so that's really important. And, I always say this to like is just kind of a soapbox.
And I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, go.
I just had this thought.
Yeah.
And the relationships that you build with other Christian people around you are going to help you grow in your relationship with God.
Yes.
It's a both and. So it's not just, okay,
Yes.
only my relationship with God and then everything else matters. God created
Yes.
it to work holistically.
Yes, and that's why community is so important. Christian community is so important to have people in your lives. But I think, I sometimes stand on this soapbox moment, and listen, I love all of the church grandmas, the church aunts, like all of those women who care so deeply, and I think they care so deeply because they see what a wonderful person you might be, and they just want somebody else to experience that as well. But I think it's time we kind of stop asking people, like, are you dating anyone? Like it matters. Or when are you going to get married? Like it matters. Instead, say, how are you doing? First of all, how's your walk with the Lord? I haven't seen you at church in a few weeks. Is everything okay? Check in on people, because if they're not growing in their relationship with God, the relationship that matters, there's going to be a ripple effect that comes out of that. And that's going to even make them feel more alone, because that's the thing that the enemy wants. He wants to isolate you. He wants you to feel like you're alone. He wants you to feel like people are against you. And we need to stand firm on the truth of the gospel, that if we know that God will never leave us, that all of those lies from the enemy are not going to matter.
And part of asking those questions and discipling someone, even if whether you're single or married, maybe you do find out that they're dating someone when you ask them those questions. And part of our responsibility is to ask about who they're dating. Who's like, what's their character like?
Yes.
How what type of dates are you guys going on? Have there been boundaries set?
Yep.
It's not like, again, like it's okay to ask if they're dating someone, because again, that's a part of discipling them and making sure that they're on the right path to a healthy
But it shouldn't be
relationship.
the identity or the thing that defines them or the thing that you're most interested in.
Absolutely.
So what about you? What are your guys' thoughts on this? And actually, tell me your favorite dating stories, those crazy dating stories. I mean, I've gotten stood up. I've met people who don't look like themselves. I've
been ghosted.
All of those things. Tell the stories, because you know what? Then we'll build that community, because we'll know we're not alone. So that's all we got for you today on this episode of Everyday Theology, but we hope to see you again really soon. Thank you for watching Everyday Theology. Did you know Everyday Theology is a part of Woodside Bible Church? Woodside is a church with 14 locations across Southeast Michigan, and we would love to see you at one of those locations or even online. Head to woodsidebible.org to find a service time near you.